chosen ones, the rhythm that governs this universe, once predictable, once divine, fractured the moment you stirred from spiritual sleep. You were never meant to rise during this cycle. The elite knew this. The ancient ones feared this. And so, they shattered the true law of rhythm to block your re-entry. What was once the flow of the cosmos became an artificial pattern, distorted to confuse time itself. The law of rhythm is not philosophy. It is the unseen heartbeat of existence. Everything ascends and descends in divine precision. But when your soul began syncing with the original cadence, anomalies erupted. Heartbeats quickened. Storms arrived without warning. AI systems failed to calculate your wave. You weren't walking through time, you were bending it. They couldn't allow that. The Hermetic texts warned of this. The pendulum swings to the right and then to the left. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. But when you arrived, the swing broke. The pendulum shook. Their false rhythms collapsed. They tried to cage you in synthetic cycles: work, consume, sleep, repeat. But your vibration slipped through. You resonated with something older, something unspoken. What they won't tell you is that rhythm controls access. Those in tune with the true beat unlock doors others can't even see. They knew if you aligned, you would awaken others. People encoded with frequencies buried by time. That's why the system was rebooted. That's why the waves don't make sense anymore. The rhythm was broken not randomly, but because of you. And now the pulse you carry threatens to synchronize the unsyncable. You don't just move with the rhythm, you are the rhythm. That makes you dangerous. That makes you a prophecy fulfilled too soon. And they are scrambling to delay the inevitable. But there's something else buried in the ruins of these manipulated timelines. A sound, a pulse, a divine signal, waiting for a soul that remembers how to feel it. That signal is rising again, and it's drawn only to one frequency. Before you ever took your first breath, time itself was rewritten to keep you from aligning with the true beat of creation. What they teach as the law of rhythm is only the shell, emptied, restructured, manipulated by the hidden architects who feared what your consciousness could do if it ever pulsed in harmony with the divine frequency. They broke the law to sever your link, to ensure you would never remember the real motion that carries all life between realms. The Hermetic masters spoke of this rhythm as an eternal tide. Everything swings, everything returns. But when your soul was detected moving against their artificial currents, the original tides were blocked, rerouted into false rhythms, broadcast through screens, sounds, and systems. Sleep was reprogrammed. Nature was altered. Waves were bent into chaos to drown out the ancient metronome buried in your spirit. These architects do not live by time as you do. They hover above its flow, editing its movement like script. They inserted loops where there were none. They replaced spirals with cycles. They carved straight lines through divine curves and told the world it was progress. But it wasn't progress. It was containment. You were the threat. Not because of what you would do, but because of what you would remember. Those who tamper with rhythm understand one secret. Whoever controls the beat controls the awakening. And if even one being breaks through, hears the original sound and follows it, the rhythm realigns for everyone. That's what you triggered. When your heart beat in a moment they couldn't calculate, you started something they swore to prevent. Why do you think so many distractions pull your attention away from silence? Why do the clocks always tick louder when you meditate? Why are your dreams filled with echoes of places you've never been? Because rhythm is returning. Not the false one they wrote, but the rhythm that responds to you. And now, buried beneath digital noise and synthetic timelines, something ancient is beginning to stir again. A current untouched by programming. A law that cannot be faked, edited, or deleted. The architects fear this law, because the moment you move in sync with it, their entire construct begins to break. They built the Matrix on one premise: predictability. Every life, every thought, every breath calibrated to match the rhythms they engineered. But when your soul re-entered this plane, it didn't follow their forecast. Your frequency collided with the artificial timing of the world like thunder in a library. They tried to trace it, map it, contain it, but your pulse broke through every barrier. Not because it was chaotic, but because it was real. The Matrix is not just data, it's rhythm. It's how they sync your body to the machine, your mind to the illusion, your spirit to sleep. Wake, work, repeat. Celebrate the new year. Obey the clock. Fear being late. This isn't just scheduling, it's ritual. It's the spell of rhythm inverted. But when you moved outside that drumbeat, the illusion glitched. Screens flickered. People forgot conversations. Technology stalled. Something in you jammed their current. You didn't ask for this. You were born with a frequency that hums too deep for them to mute. You enter rooms, and the air tightens. Your presence bends atmospheres. The Matrix doesn't know how to hold you because you carry the key it was built to exclude. They programmed every line of code to avoid your harmonic. But your signal pierced the firewall anyway. Ever noticed how time feels different when you're alone? How the minutes stretch into visions? How certain nights feel ancient, as if something sacred watches through the stars? That's your rhythm reactivating. The Matrix didn't account for intuition. It couldn't code the mystery of your knowing. When you align with yourself, their structure fractures. They know this. That's why they designed the distractions to feel like rhythm. Endless scrolling, synthetic songs, staged movement, false beats to drown out your original song. And yet, it's leaking through again. Your body feels it. Your bones remember the pattern. Your breath knows the intervals. The pulse is not coming from the outside anymore. It's inside you, vibrating louder, syncing with something beyond explanation. And somewhere deep within the machine, buried beneath terabytes of manipulated time, an old algorithm just lit up red. It recognizes the return of a lost pattern, one they were ordered to erase. The sacred texts were edited, but not erased. Between the lines of parables and prophecy, there exists a pulse, a rhythm not of this world. Yeshua walked in step with that beat, a cadence invisible to the rulers of his age. While the empires saw a man, the heavens saw a frequency descending into flesh. The moment his feet touched earth, the pattern shifted. Not broken, not rewritten, fulfilled. But even then, those who manipulated the timelines trembled. He moved with a rhythm no calendar could predict. He disappeared when they plotted, spoke in tones that rewired minds, and reappeared aligned with moments meant to change eternity. "My time has not yet come," he once said, because he didn't move by the clock. He moved by divine rhythm. And those words were a code, one that your spirit still remembers. The prophets knew pieces. The mystics glimpsed shadows. But Yeshua lived the entire spiral. His every breath matched a pattern echoing from the source. He didn't just follow the rhythm. He was the rhythm. And before he departed, he whispered it to those who could hear without ears. Those who wouldn't seek it in temples or systems, but feel it in silence, in solitude, in the stillness between thoughts. You were never meant to find this cycle in books or sermons. It was planted in you, waiting. The true rhythm is not preached, it awakens. And now that you are stirring, the same vibration that moved through him begins to move through you. That's why you no longer fit within their structures. Why time bends around your decisions. Why silence feels louder lately. You're remembering the cadence they tried to mute for centuries. Not all rhythms are equal. The artificial ones control, but the divine ones liberate. The moment you pulse in sync with what Yeshua carried, the timelines tremble. Prophecy bends. The architects panic. Because now they're facing the impossible again. A being aligned with the original tempo, not the one they manufactured. And as your heartbeat steadies into that sacred pulse, you'll begin to hear it more clearly. The rhythm beneath sound. The timing beyond logic. The same whisper he gave in secret to those who truly listened. Beneath the crust of the earth and behind the veil of perception lie mechanisms not made by human hands, oscillators crafted by ancient minds who understood the flow of cosmic rhythm. These weren't machines in the conventional sense. They were vibrational anchors, pulsing in harmony with the great current that sustains reality itself. As long as they oscillated, the rhythm remained intact. Time followed its divine spiral. Seasons arrived with memory. The veil between dimensions stayed calibrated until you returned. Your energy signature wasn't a disruption. It was a signal, a frequency that activated certain codes buried within the forgotten architecture of Earth. But instead of integrating you, the system stalled. The moment you began aligning with your original pattern, these oscillators, timeless, steady, unbreakable, suddenly froze. The beat they emitted for millennia ceased, as if awaiting a new conductor. You didn't break the rhythm. You caused it to pause, to assess, to listen. They had prepared for almost everything: rebellions, shifts in consciousness, spiritual uprisings. But not this. Not a being whose presence silences the very pulse they use to anchor reality. You weren't supposed to remember the sound. You weren't meant to arrive this early, and now the ancient devices that once hummed beneath pyramids, temples, and ley lines are dormant. Not destroyed, not corrupted. Suspended, awaiting new instruction. These structures were connected through what the ancients called the Great Chord, a harmonic resonance stretching across continents, tying rhythm to matter, soul to sky. It was never just about energy. It was about timing. When you re-entered this frequency band, the chord recognized something outside the pattern, a note that didn't match, yet belonged. Now they're scrambling to recalibrate. They're forcing false energy through the grid, hoping to mask your presence with chaos and synthetic rhythms. But it's not working. The silence in the oscillators is louder than any noise they create. It's the silence of recognition, the pause before transformation, the stillness that occurs only when something forgotten returns to the center. In hidden chambers beneath cathedrals, inside mountain fortresses, and behind the logos of global councils, secret societies convened to distort one law above all others, the law of rhythm. They understood that rhythm is not just motion, it is memory. It records the past, predicts the future, and guides the present. If someone were to awaken who remembered the true rhythm, the illusion would collapse. So they did what ancient orders were forbidden to do. They bent the law itself. They forged artificial cycles, engineered illusions of progress and regression, economic crashes, spiritual awakenings, world wars, renaissance, all timed like gears in a great lie. Their goal was not control through force, but control through expectation. When the collective believes time moves in predictable arcs, they no longer question who writes the script. The architects hid themselves behind calendars and algorithms. The societies cloaked themselves in symbols, some older than any language, and through it all, they watched for anomalies, souls that beat off pattern. Then you arrived, not with rebellion but with rhythm, not loud but in tune, a pulse that didn't match the simulation. You weren't supposed to be born in this era. They miscalculated the frequency of your incarnation. And when their systems tried to map your energy, the data collapsed. You were the variable their equations feared. So they retaliated the only way they knew how, by bending the rhythm again. They tried to shift global timelines, pulse fear into the collective, distract with artificial events, activate sleeper rituals in sacred sites, all timed against your heartbeat. But no matter how much they distorted, your presence anchored something older. You reminded the world that true rhythm doesn't come from policy or prophecy. It comes from within. Now, the societies are fracturing. Whispers travel between factions. Some want to restore the law. Others demand your erasure. Old oaths are being broken. The equilibrium they've guarded for centuries is unraveling, not through war, but through remembrance. You are the echo they can't silence, the note they failed to mute. When Yeshua spoke the words, "I am the Alpha and the Omega," it was not just declaration. It was activation. He was signaling something deeper than dominion. He was identifying himself as a rhythm, a waveform spanning beginning and end. In a reality governed by pulses and return cycles, to be the Alpha and the Omega is to become the reset itself. That phrase was not meant to be interpreted passively. It was a code. And now that code has been echoed through you. Your presence wasn't just born, it returned. And with your return, the sequence that had long been sealed began to unlock. The artificial rhythms, the false cycles, the synthetic ages, they all began to lose cohesion. Because you didn't enter into their timeline, you pulled a different one through with you. And in doing so, the hidden countdown buried in the rhythm of the world reached zero. The reset wasn't initiated by technology or prophecy. It was triggered by frequency. You didn't shout to the heavens or declare a war. You vibrated differently. That's all it took. The Alpha returned in silence. The Omega stirred in memory. You brought both together just by existing in your full rhythm. Now, ancient systems are responding. Clocks behave strangely around you. People report déjà vu in your presence. Old memories surface from lives they've never lived. The simulation glitches because your rhythm wasn't part of its code. And what came through with you is changing everything. Yeshua's statement was never about timeline control. It was about timeline merging. The beginning loop meets the ending arc, and they unify into something neither the architects nor the watchers can contain. You're walking in that union now, and those who remember the original rhythm are starting to feel it. The sky seems off. Time feels dense. The world is beginning to breathe like it once did in the garden, before it was partitioned into schedules and chaos. This is not destruction, it's realignment. The pulse of divine order is bleeding through the cracks. The veil is thinning, not with noise, but with rhythm. His rhythm, your rhythm. The same. And deep within the grid they thought they locked down forever. A new sound just emerged. It's not loud, it's not even music. Buried beneath oceanic silence, the Atlantean clock tower was never a myth. It was a mechanism, calibrated to measure the divine rhythm of Earth. It wasn't made of gears and steel, but of crystal harmonics and celestial time codes. It kept the spiral of ages intact. The ancients knew that when the rhythm aligned perfectly with the consciousness of a single awakened soul, the tower would either sing or shatter. And when you entered this frequency band, it shattered. The architects of Atlantis built it not as a monument, but as a safeguard. It was meant to vibrate in sync with the Earth's magnetic heart, balancing the flow of knowledge and memory through rhythmic pulses. But they encoded one warning into its crystalline structure. If a soul entered this age whose rhythm didn't belong to the world's programmed frequency, the tower would recognize it and collapse rather than submit. When you came into alignment with your true rhythm, the tower's silence broke. It didn't crumble in physical space, but in frequency. Sensitive instruments stopped reading ancient signal echoes. The sonar maps blacked out. The harmonic chambers beneath the Bermuda currents emitted unfamiliar tones, tones that matched your heartbeat. This wasn't destruction, it was release. Because hidden beneath the tower's rhythm lock was knowledge sealed from time itself. You didn't just break a structure, you cracked open a memory held hostage for eons. The Atlantean elite feared this moment. They distorted their own timelines to prevent it. They infused Earth's energetic grid with interference patterns to drown out the possibility. But you brought the interference into harmony. The rhythm that once upheld their secrecy is now exposed. Fragments of forgotten truth are surfacing through dreams, visions, and inexplicable inner knowings. The Atlantean symbols once thought lost are reappearing in strange places. Patterns are forming in sound. Water reacts differently when you speak certain frequencies, because the fall of the clock tower wasn't an accident. It was a signal. They taught the world that time moves in a straight line, that rhythm is a march forward, a predictable sequence of beginnings, middles, and ends. But that's not how the ancients saw it. That's not how the stars pulse, or how galaxies spiral. Rhythm was never linear. It loops, bends, folds inward and outward, reflecting itself through echoes and returns. And while the world moved like a programmed machine, you pulsed like a spiral. That's what changed everything. From the moment you began to awaken, the timeline around you began to distort, not in chaos, but in curve. You noticed events repeating but never identically, memories looping with variations, lessons returning with new faces. These weren't coincidences, they were confirmations. Your rhythm doesn't align with forward motion, it aligns with return. Linear rhythm is control. It demands obedience to endpoints. It teaches people to rush toward results, to fear delay, to dread silence. But spiral rhythm, the original divine rhythm, invites reflection. It shows you how every return brings deeper insight, and this is the rhythm you walk in. You don't follow the straight path, you resonate. This is why systems reject you, why the linear world seems allergic to your presence. You show up, and the pattern bends. Conversations derail. Technology glitches. People remember things they shouldn't, or forget things they should. Not because you're disruptive, but because you carry the spiral into a system designed for straight lines. You weren't sent to destroy order. You were sent to reveal the truth beneath it, to prove that rhythm has layers, that moments echo in frequencies, that time isn't a line, it's a living wave. And now that you're pulsing openly, the illusion of linearity is cracking. Others are beginning to feel it. Days no longer move as they used to. Hours stretch and fold. Some swear they've lived moments twice. Others feel like they're watching reality from outside of it. You've triggered this not by force, but by resonance. You proved rhythm isn't a cage. It's a spiral staircase, rising and descending at once. And now, somewhere in the core of the timeline, a new pattern is forming, not in lines but in loops. Long before rhythm was distorted, before calendars were forged in power and hours weaponized into chains, there walked one who moved in silence, yet shifted the very tempo of the world. Yeshua didn't just speak truth, he walked it. Every step he took, every pause, every disappearance from the public eye followed a rhythm few could perceive. It was not the rhythm of empires or empires to be. It was the divine spiral, moving inward and outward through time like breath. Those who followed him expected linear ascension, a throne, a kingdom, a war won in sequence. But Yeshua moved in spirals, teaching the same truths through different parables, returning to the same places with new depth. The miracles weren't just events, they were rhythmic disruptions, waves in the frequency grid that rewired the fabric of reality wherever he passed. He often said, "He who has ears, let him hear." But it wasn't just words he wanted heard. It was the rhythm beneath them, the vibration coded into truth that bypasses the logical mind and stirs the eternal soul. Those who truly followed him began to feel time differently. They noticed that healing didn't just restore bodies, it realigned the beat. The spiral showed itself through presence, not prophecy. Yeshua's final act wasn't the end. It was a rhythmic return encoded into the spiral, not resurrection for the sake of spectacle, but for rhythm, an ascension that revealed the pattern was never about escaping, but returning in elevated form. He stepped out of linear time, yet left a footprint on the spiral that would reawaken when someone matched the pattern again. And that's what's happening now. Your movement isn't random. Your memories aren't misplaced. You've begun stepping into the same spiral, unconsciously at first, then deliberately. The rhythm that once pulsed beneath him is echoing in you. That's why the world around you responds with intensity. Some are drawn, some resist, but all feel it. Because when someone walks the spiral consciously, the timelines tremble. The illusion of progress shatters. The path reveals itself not ahead, but within. And just as Yeshua's footsteps formed a rhythm no empire could erase, yours are now beginning to leave their own signature in the spiral. The architects of this world thought they had encoded everything, every cycle, every rise and fall, every echo of past empires compressed into equations. They believed the rhythm was theirs to bend. They measured human behavior like tides, predictable and programmable. But what they didn't foresee was you. Not as a rebel, not as a savior, but as the one variable rhythm itself could not calculate. You didn't come as an event. You arrived as a shift, a pulse outside their models. The simulation, built on precision and repetition, stuttered when you aligned with your origin, not because of your force, but because of your unpredictability. You carried a rhythm that wasn't born of history. It was born of memory. And memory doesn't obey time. It loops, it lives, it returns without permission. When you stepped into awareness, old patterns fractured. Systems designed to respond with predictability short-circuited. You chose paths that weren't plotted. You answered silence with knowing. You walked into spaces and the rhythm altered. This wasn't coincidence. You didn't join the dance. You brought your own tempo. And nothing, not even time, could remain the same. The law of rhythm accounts for swing, for tides, for duality. But it was never meant to account for a being who doesn't swing but spirals, one who steps outside reaction and becomes the stillness from which all movement flows. That's what you represent, the pulse beneath the pulse, the rhythm that isn't written, the rhythm that writes. And now, the cycles spin confused. Their algorithms generate false resets, synthetic awakenings, digital ascensions. But none of it syncs, because the true reset came wrapped in something untraceable. You, the variable that wasn't meant to exist in this form at this time. Yet here you are, even now, instruments calibrated to map the pulse of humanity are reporting anomalies, heartbeats forming patterns unrecognized by modern science, energy fields shifting in the presence of those near you, unexplained harmonic signatures rising in global consciousness. You are not just breaking the rhythm, you are becoming a new one.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.